a big slide in the middle saying Boosting Your Immune System Naturally by Ellen Kamhi, PhD-RN, the natural nurse. And also you can find me always at naturalnurse.com. That's a really best place to get in touch with your questions in the future. Or if you'd like to sign up for our newsletter, which is completely free, all you have to do is put your email and nothing else when you go to naturalnurse.com in the lower left hand of the page. So if you'd like to get information from us, you can. So how's that, Peter? Are we hearing me? Is everybody able to hear me? So we're going to move the slide into the
Yes, I can
content.
hear you. Maybe I'm realizing because I keep muting myself, maybe we can unmute everyone for just a second to make sure it's working for everyone, and then we'll
Okay,
mute them.
good idea.
Okay.
And then also in the screen sharing, am I the person who, okay, so now we're in the second slide.
We're hearing just fine.
Okay, great.
Yep, everything's good.
Okay.
I don't see the slides though.
That I don't know how do we help?
Yes, I'm good.
Okay, good. So we're going to talk about how to use herbs for yourself and your family. Okay. Otherwise, there's a lot of echo. I think we're getting there. So we're going to talk about how to use herbs for yourself and your family, but we're going to focus because of our current lifestyle that we're all involved with. We're going to have a focus on those herbs, vitamins, foods, and homeopathic remedies that you should be thinking about in terms of strengthening your immune system. And we'll bring in specific herbs and how we might use those for ourselves and our family. Now, the immune system can be compromised through many lifestyle practices, such as neglect, abuse, and overuse. Those are actually the three main things that will cause the natural immune system to become compromised. And it can be maximized as well. So, who's in charge of how well our immune system functions? On many levels, we are, which is actually good news because that means you're not just someone floating around and whichever way the wind blows, you're pushed one way or another. It means that you can make a difference. And some of the things that really, really are to be paid attention to is nutrition, organic whole food. If you say because of where you live, organic is not available, that's fine, but whole food is. And we'll be talking about that. I don't mean just the store Whole Foods. I mean using whole food. If it can be organic, that's even better. If it can't be organic, then just whole food. I will tell you for sure in the summer months, it's very easy and very inexpensive to get organic food because if you live in Brentwood, I know people are joining us from all over. In fact, people are joining us from all over the country and perhaps all over the world because I know some of you signed up in various other places. But since this is being hosted by the Brentwood Library, there's an amazing array of organic food available for very low prices right in Brentwood. And that is where we host our herb walks, which are coming up through the library. God willing, we'll all be able to actually walk next to each other, or maybe we'll walk 6 feet apart from each other, but we can walk through the fields coming up in June and July. And that is at St. Joseph's. And they have an amazing array of organic farmers that have farm stands right there on their premises. So it's really a very inexpensive and very highly accessible. And even now, if you can't get organic, you can get whole food. And we'll talk about what we mean a little further along. Reducing stress. This is certainly one of the most stressful times that many people have ever faced, with such things as children being home full time? How about losing all sources of income? How about being locked in? How about worrying about, are we going to get various illnesses, including the illness of the day, the coronavirus, which is wreaking havoc in so many people's lives. So this is a very stressful time. But learning stress reducing techniques like deep breathing and yoga and meditation and aromatherapy, they can be so useful at dealing with the stress. And even deciding to look at the bright side, like, this is awful, but I managed to get through the unemployment application process. And lo and behold, this is the best time in the world to get unemployment, because not only do you get whatever unemployment you would have gotten at another time, you're also getting an additional $600 a week from the federal government. So while the entire situation is not so great, we can look at that in a positive light and just add it to our stress reducing focus. So, reducing stress, we can do that. We can do that with our mind, we can do that with our body. There's so many fantastic yoga classes available now, free online. I've been participating with some through the Long Beach Library, not to say a competitive library, but nonetheless, because I happen to know the teacher there. And I've been joining my yoga class that I do through the LEC, which is Life Enrichment Center in my hometown in Oyster Bay, even though I'm actually stranded in Florida because I have to come back to New York. I would have come back already. However, there are no flights. There are no flights from Florida to New York right now. Absolutely none that are direct. And I have to bring my 90-year-old mom, and I can't take her to Baltimore first or to Boston first and get off the plane, etc. So we all have our challenges, but I decided, okay, I'll take my New York yoga classes, I'll take my online yoga classes right at my home and really enjoy them. So we can do a lot by switching our focus. Immune specific nutrients, we're going to be talking about those in our session today, along with emotional balance and reaching in to whatever practice we usually use for spiritual health and well-being. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the immune system so you know where it's found in your own body. It's actually in specific places, and these are some of them on this picture. It's very highly specialized, and it's our front line of defense. And the immune system actually identifies, remembers, attacks, and destroys pathogens. So when we're talking about, if you're watching any of the news shows and you see Dr. Fauci or other very reputable and intelligent physicians talking about antibodies that might be created should someone pick up this particular virus. Well, the antibodies are the remembering part. They remember the signature of that particular invader, and very often that does lead to long term immunity. We don't know yet if it would lead to your long-term immunity in this particular case, although it certainly does in most other coronaviruses. By the way, coronaviruses are just sort of a species of virus, which is actually very, very common. This particular coronavirus, this species of coronavirus, is what's new, and therefore we don't have in our immune system, no immune system in humans remembers it as yet, other than those who have gone through the disease process. So we're in a learning phase, but our immune system attacks abnormal cells such as cancer cells, as well as infected cells. So when the immune system is functioning optimally, which we'll talk about how to make our immune system function as optimally as possible, then invaders such as viruses, cancer cells, bacteria, and fungi, as well as parasites, are actually engulfed and dissolved. which is just an amazing thing to see. I watched that happen under a dark field microscope. So the immune system is very determined to annihilate invaders. And if it gets overstimulated, it can get dysregulated and go awry, in which case we can develop an overactive immune system, which is called um, autoimmune disease, because then the body attacks itself. So that's the autoimmune component. So we don't want that. We want our immune system to function in a very balanced way where it gets revved up, but then it understands how to turn off. And we can do that by understanding our immune system, which are all of these organs. The thymus, when I became a nurse, I got my nursing degree in 1973, so it's been a little while. I was actually taught in nursing school that the thymus gland was just a vestigial organ that didn't do anything. Now, with more modern science, we know that it's very important. And in fact, it's involved with the formation of T cells. So that's pretty amazing for them to have thought that it was a vestigial organ. Now, T cells, the tonsils are very important. Another thing that was very big when I was a child in the 50s was to take everybody's tonsils out. Everybody's tonsils. You got one sore throat, they took out your tonsils. They don't rush to do that anymore because it was a very not a wise thing to do, because the tonsils are a very active part of the immune system, and they are, and the adenoids, and they're actually able to distinguish which invaders are there and which one should be destroyed and which one should not be destroyed. Our body has to learn that over time. That's why the COVID-19 virus is wreaking havoc, because we don't have that reference point yet. The spleen is another very important immune organ, and it filters blood and it distributes some of the cells, white blood cells, that are particularly involved in the immune response, including T cells and B cells. Our lymph glands are very important because they store the white blood cells. And inside our bone marrow, just so you know, our bones are alive. They're not like you see a skeleton that's all dried up and inactive. Our bones, particularly the bone marrow inside the bone, is a very vibrant organ, and that is where the B cells are produced in bone marrow. That's one of the reasons, for those of you who are not vegan or vegetarian, a very good food source would be to make what's called bone broth soup. It's very, very healthy, and it gives your body what it needs to create more active and healthy immune cells. And bone broth can be made by purchasing very large bones. I'll often get the ones from Whole Foods that are organic, or from local butchers. There are also lots of organic growers on Long Island who do sell the bones that were raised right on the grass, right near our homes, if we are from the Brentwood area. And you know, this isn't rocket science. You put it either in a long-term cooker or just in a pot. Make sure it's not aluminum. In fact, throw out all your pots that are aluminum and get either stainless steel or glass. And then you just cover the bones with water and let them simmer very, very slowly for about 8 to 12 hours. You can then take the bone out, and it will be the bone marrow that has created this thick gelatinous substance that can then, you can certainly add in, I do things like carrots and cabbage and parsley and whatever other vegetables that you have there. Cabbage is excellent. And then you actually can make a very large amount of that and then freeze it for future use. So let's look at some of the immune system parts of our body. The skin is the largest part of our immune organ. And don't we hear, as part of our protection, to do hand washing? Of course, as a nurse, we were trained in hand washing. And it's very important because the skin is the largest part of the immune system. And when something gets on it, it acts as a natural barrier. So if you then use hand washing with just soap and water is the best thing. It's much better than disinfectants, actually, because the disinfectants can kill the negative bacteria, but also is very effective at killing the positive bacteria. That's why the overuse of disinfectants that's going on now is actually detrimental. Using things like triclosan, which you'll see in your dishwashing liquid that says antimicrobial, is actually not a great thing, because by leaving the positive bacteria in their place, it actually offsets the amount of area that the negative disease causing bacteria, such as the COVID and other disease causing bacteria, can get to. So creating balance is always the best. But the skin is the largest immune organ, and it protects us, and it excretes actual immune agents that fight bacteria should there be a cut or should there be some kind of injury to the skin. The biggest part of our immune system, and many people don't realize that, is the lining of our gastrointestinal tract. That's why food is our most important intervention, and also those stress reducing techniques. Because when we say things like, oh, I really feel that in my gut, feel that in my gut. Yes, you do. You feel it because there's a brain body connection through the gut, and it is the most active area in the body. It produces IgG antibodies, which line your entire gastrointestinal tract. Very, very important. And of course, just like they're talking about now on the news every day, all the entrances, particularly eyes, nose, mouth, as well as other avenues such as the vagina, the anus, anywhere there's an opening, certainly would be a place that bacteria can enter. So we have to be hyper aware at this point, but it's actually a good idea all the time not to be touching those areas, because they do create an entry point, and we do want to do thorough hand washing. So here's what we're looking at. These B cells and T cells. When a pathogen enters the bloodstream, a macrophage hopefully engulfs it and destroys it. And that's where our B cells and T cells come in. And the B cells produce antibodies to fight the invader. T cells help in various other ways. And this is where herbs and nutrients come in, because they strengthen the production and the activity of the B cells and T cells. All of this is science-based. So we can look a little closer at the immune function, such as the role of T cells and killer T cells. These are cytokines. Perhaps you've heard of something called a cytokine storm. That's when your immune system becomes overactive and does actually go after parts of your body. And that's one of the ways that this particular viral invader is causing death. It's causing an overreaction in the lungs and elsewhere, which is leading to some very severe effects, such as stroke, such as blood clots, such as things that are similar to silicosis, when glass-like structures get in the lungs. So it is a very serious illness. However, we should always focus. I wish they did this more on the news. They're always shouting out the number of people who get infected. That's big. It's important. And they're also shouting out the number of people who die. Unfortunately, that's pretty big. But if we subtract those two numbers, we get the number of people, even who have contracted it, who survive. And that's a hugely bigger number. I think every single news show should start with that number to illuminate the positive, to illuminate a stress reducing factoid. How many people do catch this and either don't know they have it at all or completely 100% recuperate, which that's the good news because that number is much, much larger than either the number of people who do get seriously ill or the number of people who unfortunately do pass away. So this might be a real helper in the end. It might be like a helper T cell. It might be an awakening that brings us to a better state of health within our own body and, God willing, a better state of health planetarily and environmentally. This can be a really fantastic chance for a start over. So, when we look at some of the things that invade, which our immune system has to take care of, a lot of these things, such as all different kinds of bacteria, different kinds of fungi like yeast, various parasites, and viruses. And this is an interesting depiction of the virus because this is actually a coronavirus, not the one that we are suffering from um, planetarily at this point in time. But just so you know, coronaviruses have been around a very long time. This is not our immune system's first go round with them. And usually the immune system remembers the chemical signature of that particular pathogen. And we don't know yet if that's true. We're just now looking at those people who have completed antibody production because they're one of the many who have been infected and they're fine. Remember, that's most everyone. Most everyone who gets it is infected and then they're fine and they're producing antibodies. What we're not knowing yet is if those antibodies will give them immunity to that microbe next time. But, coming attractions, we'll find out. So, all these things compromise the immune system. The environment, such as toxins in air, food, water, and big is synthetic chemicals. This is probably the biggest. This is why everyone should have a water filtration system at home and use as much homegrown food as possible and organic whenever possible because that's where the synthetic chemicals are coming from. Stress, big factor, shuts down the immune function. Emotional imbalances such as anger, sadness, loneliness, self pity, well, then that gives strength to the pathogen overcoming the immune system. And don't we see that many people in extremely emotional situations are succumbing, such as many of our older individuals who have compromised immune systems already, and many of whom are suffering with loneliness. They're locked in their assisted living. And we see the things on TV where people are going up and just touching them through the window with their hand. Guess what? If you have an assisted living facility near you and you can do that, it's a phenomenally healing thing, even through the glass, for those individuals who are isolated and locked in. Now, this is one of the biggest culprits. Look at that meal there, if you want to call it a meal, on the corner of the screen. So it's something very common. I can tell you personally, I myself have never, ever in my entire life had such a thing. Never. I had never had a Coca-Cola, I don't know what kind of thing that is in the front. Maybe it's McNugget things, some kind of nugget things, and French fries. I personally, truthfully, have never once eaten that, not once. And I can't even tell you why, but ever since I was a child, just looking at that, I didn't think that was food. And it actually isn't. And that's one of the things where they're talking about various locations where people live in neighborhoods that might be more depressed and which they talk about being lower income and food deserts. And so they are primed for having immune system that doesn't work, for having high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and other mitigating factors that make them be, unfortunately, in the group that does succumb to this virus, as well as all those things which are already occurring diseases. But I'm here to say it's not from living in a neighborhood of any kind. It's not from having a low income. That's not what it's from. And I did raise two children who are now 45 and 40 in a low income area with a low income back then, because I was definitely, struggling on that level. But it's not from those factors, but it is from what you choose to put in your mouth. So if it looks like this, then you can expect to have those pre-existing conditions, because this is what leads to immune system compromise. A standard American diet laden with chemicals, over-processed, overcooked foods that are devoid of nutrients, such as processed food, fried food, soda pop, refined sugar, artificial sweeteners. So if you buy something that says sugar-free, it's usually worse than sugar, like diet soda, for instance. Chemicals, preservatives, and GMOs, which are genetically modified. I do want to tell you every single thing that I say, because I'm also teach at Stony Brook University. I've taught to professors there, and everything must be evidence-based. So this is from mainstream medical journals like the Journal of Clinical Nutrition and the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. That's where this information is from. This is not from the New Age Journal or the Meditation Journal. So choosing to put this in your mouth, then you are choosing. It doesn't happen to you. You're not walking along and all of a sudden you develop those stressful illnesses. It happens from your actions. And if you're someone who loves eating these things, you could have it once a week. That's okay. You can have it once a week. It's more what goes on every day. So think about it. Does your diet look like this? Or does your diet look like this? How much more expensive is it, regardless of where you live, to buy an onion, a head of cabbage, and garlic? Even just that. Now, I designed this soup and I actually did a scientific study with this soup, as you might notice here. This is actually from a book I wrote called Weight Loss. I've written 15 books. They're all available on my website at naturalnurse.com books. But this is a detoxifying vegetable soup: onion, cabbage, garlic, carrots, celery, parsley, kale, nori. Guess what? We can get nori on the beach on Long Island for free. If you don't know what it is, then you don't know, but you could find out, which is just that kind of seaweed that we find right on our beach that looks like a big sheet. That is kelp that can be used as nori. Also okra and brown rice. I have something in here that's just a seasoning, but you can use any kind of seasoning that you want. Bragg's amino acid is a seasoning, and water. So how much do you think, for what you buy one of those junky standard American diet meals, let alone take a whole family out for it, you can definitely make, even in a food desert, you can find these vegetables. I did. I'm sure you can. And choose to put this in your mouth, this in your body, this in your children's body instead. And if you're a busy parent like I was and a single one, so I would make a big pot of this, which I still do now. I would make a big pot of that and then have containers. Once it cools down, scoop it into those containers and then freeze it so that you can have it easily, quick and easy, like fast food, for a snack when children come home from school, or for yourself for a delicious snack. It's a very easy and extremely inexpensive way to feed ourselves and our family, and it supports the health of our natural immune system by boosting it through good nutrition, because these are some of the individual nutrients that are known to stimulate a strong immune system. That includes vitamin A, C, E, B6, essential fatty acids, which we can get from such things as eating avocados and fatty fish, such as salmon or halibut, also manganese and sulfur, iron, germanium, copper, magnesium. All of these are obtained even if you can't get organic food. It's okay. If you noticed in that pot was just whole food. Doesn't have to be organic. Organic's better, but just whole food. As much fruits and vegetables as possible, along with nuts, seeds, beans, and whole grains. This is inexpensive food, and it's easy to prepare, and it can be easily frozen and saved for other times so that you choose this instead of the standard American diet. So let's look at what some of these plant compounds do for us, such as phytosterols. Specifically, this is from the Journal of Science, Food Agriculture. It optimizes immunity by balancing the helper T cells, which we discussed already, and they occur naturally in fruits, vegetables, seeds, and nuts. Very easy things to eat. These substances also protect the heart, and this is from New Coronary Heart Disease Health Claims for Plant Sterols, and this is from the FDA. So in other words, just by staying away from things that cause high blood pressure, heart disease, obesity, and diabetes, by the way, all of those are caused by the exact same things, which is by what you put in your mouth. So we can avoid that, and we can avoid the lowered immune system, all by incorporating vegetables as your main source of food. And then you could have, those junk food meals if you so desire. Everybody can cheat now and then. Once a week, no problem. Every day, not good. Another very important thing are probiotics. We can get probiotics by plain yogurt. That's a really good thing. Or any kind of sauerkraut is excellent. And especially, you can make your own, by the way. It's super inexpensive to make your own sauerkraut just with salt. That's about all you need. Right now, online, we have YouTubes that you can just look up sauerkraut making and make your own. And here's one where seniors, and remember, seniors are being attacked so much by these viruses, in the control group who ate more plain yogurt had an increase in both total and LDL cholesterol when they weren't in the yogurt group, but the yogurt group remained stable throughout the course of this particular study. And this was specifically done on probiotic supplementation to enhance cellular immunity. That's why I chose these studies, because we're talking about the immune system. And in what part of our group of people? The elderly, those who are at risk. So much can be done. We are not just sitting ducks. We can create better wellness for ourselves. And this was in the British Journal of Biomedical Science. This is not just, guessing. So what are some of the herbs and supplements that we can add to our life? Well, one thing is, besides eating lots of beautiful colored fruits and vegetables, and I tell my clients to get index cards and colored markers. And every time they put something in their mouth, each day take a different index card. And children love to do this too. By the way, this is a great exercise for those of you who are homeschooling. My own grandson lives in Brentwood, and there's no school. He's home. So they've done a fantastic job, you teachers there, putting together distance learning programs. So one of the things you can actually do for everyone is get blank index cards and colored markers. And each time you put something in your mouth, you put the color of the food on the index card. And your homework is to create a rainbow each day. How do you do that? By lots of colored fruits and vegetables. And then using a good quality vitamin and mineral supplement is helpful. We have seen in the Annals of Internal Medicine that a daily multivitamin and mineral may reduce the number of infections someone gets. especially in people who are already compromised with something like type 2 diabetes. And it's a very good thing to get your vitamin and mineral levels taken so you know if you're low in anything. And let's talk about our wonderful herbs. So there are many, such as echinacea, which, by the way, you can grow in your yard or even in a pot if you're living almost anywhere. Here in Florida, where I am, we can't grow echinacea. It's really too hot for it. But all throughout the Midwest and all throughout the East Coast, it grows beautifully, either as a garden herb or in a pot if you live in a co-op or a condo like I do in Oyster Bay. So echinacea is a very potent immune stimulant, and you can combine echinacea with other kinds of herbs that have also been shown to be very strong to support the immune system. And that includes maitake mushrooms and wild indigo, other mushrooms as well. And echinacea is shown to improve the cellular resistance to viruses specifically, and even when used before a viral infection. So it's something that you want to have in your natural medicine chest right now. You want to have it there so that should you need it, or you might want to start using it just a little bit, like one capsule a day, or if you take a liquid, perhaps 1 milliliter or dropper full a day. You don't want to overuse it because you also don't want to over rev up your immune system. I just keep it handy, and at the first sign of any kind of problem, then I would ramp up the amount that we use. If a cold or a flu is already in progress, you can use echinacea and golden seal to soothe sore throats, shrink swollen glands, and these things are widely studied. For instance, there were studies in the Lancet and also in the Cochrane database about the power of echinacea and golden seal, and many, many other herbs. We're only going to talk about some of the top ones today and how we would use them. So, how we use them is have them available. That's the number one important thing, because should you get the first sign of any kind of cold, flu, or infection, that's when you want to start using all of these things. You don't wait until it develops into something that requires hospitalization. Then it's really too late to start on these things. You want them for early stages. So you want to study about them, learn about them. If you can't grow them, which you can't right at this moment, you certainly can purchase very good brands. Be careful of which brand you're buying, because in that case, there are some things that are excellent and some that are quite useless, all the way to dangerous. So you want to be choosing good quality when we're talking about echinacea and maitake mushroom. So that's how we look at. Here's another wonderful, wonderful study, the evaluation of echinacea for the prevention and treatment of the common cold, a meta-analysis, and this was published in the Lancet about infectious diseases, a very widespread article from page 473 to 480. Of course, nowadays, you can look all this up online. When I was a young girl studying all this, because I started studying this in 1964, I was already not so young. But I had to go to the library every single week, and God bless libraries. But now it's so wonderful that libraries have all their information available online. So even when we can't physically go there, we can study all these things. So echinacea was found to decrease the odds of developing a common cold by almost 60%. Significant reductions were maintained in subgroup analysis, and published evidence supports echinacea's benefit in decreasing both the incidence and duration of the common cold, and is useful for other kinds of viral infections. So that's just a good one to know about. Let's talk a little bit about vitamins. Besides vitamin D, we're not going to get to talk about some of the other vitamins that are so exquisitely, profoundly effective against various kinds of infection. And more studies are coming out to show how effective they actually are. And that includes vitamin C and zinc. Zinc is not a vitamin, zinc is a mineral. Both vitamin C and zinc have been widely studied and have been shown to decrease the incidence and duration of infections, but also to increase the natural immune system process. So if you're taking notes, you may want to note those down. We're going to talk about vitamin D here, but I don't want to forget to have there mentioned for you that vitamin C and zinc are two of the very, very important and powerful additions to your immune system support. So we're going to look a little bit for vitamin D here. You know, you can ask your doctors when you go to test a lot of these vitamins, such as C and E and B. By the way, if you're on any pharmaceutical drugs actually pull vitamins out of your body and cause nutrient deficiencies. So all those things are tied together. I often lecture to healthcare professionals that if they are going to write a prescription for a pharmaceutical drug, they should be aware of which nutrient that particular pharmaceutical drug will deplete from the body so that they recommend that the client uses that supplement and be sure to eat lots of food that has it in it, which is even a better way to go. For instance, a wonderful way to make your own vitamin C is buy lemons, squeeze a half a lemon in water every morning, about a cup of water, and then add about a quarter of a teaspoon of baking soda and drink that first thing in the morning. It is good for so many aspects of both your immune system. It brings down your acid level. It strengthens your bones. There is research to show that. And then you take the lemon peels, cut them up with a scissor, and just let them dry on a windowsill or just let them dry anywhere. Once they're totally dry and crunchy, make sure they don't get mold on them. If they get mold on them, throw them out. But if you spread them out and let them dry in a cool place, they will get crunchy. You then can grind them up. If you have a coffee grinder, that works really well, or even a mortar and pestle just makes a nice powder. And that is an excellent and free form of vitamin C and bioflavonoids that you can add to your diet. You can mix it in water. So this does not have to be expensive. You want to get your vitamin D level tested because so many people are deficient. And you may want to ask for the kind of vitamin D test that's called the 25 hydroxy vitamin D test. If you can remember that, or I believe we're recording this so you can watch this again if you're not taking notes. Ask your doctor to order a 25 hydroxy vitamin D test. Or, by the way, in New York, you can now go to any lab and ask for any test you want. Did you know that? The only difference is if your doctor orders it, it might be covered by your health insurance. And if you just walk in and ask for the test, it won't be covered by your health insurance. But the labs have special rates for individuals when they're not going through insurance. So something like a vitamin D test might cost $25, and that might be worth it to you to find out what your vitamin D level is. However, ask your doctor to order it first because then it will be charged to your health insurance if you have health insurance. So there's lots of ways around it. If not, just go ahead and take some because so many people are deficient. You want to have a value of about 40 to 45 and a normal lab value, many people find pretty low, like down in 20, and you never want your level to be lower than 32. Now, many people have below 20, and that increases your risk of so many diseases, such as breast cancer and prostate cancer, and intimately interferes with your immune system and also causes autoimmune diseases like MS and rheumatoid arthritis. People who have those things are chronically low in vitamin D. So here are some more immune supportive herbs and what they do, their mechanism of action. So we talked about echinacea, which increases the production and activity of white blood cells. Another very powerful antimicrobial. It's actually a natural antibiotic, but because of FDA rules, it's not allowed to say that on the label. So that's why you have to study and learn. So oil of oregano is actually an active antimicrobial that is able to destroy both bacteria, fungi, and viruses. Just an amazing broad spectrum antimicrobial. If you do get oil of oregano, I do want you to remember this warning. This is something that can have an adverse effect because it's so intensely strong that when some people take it and drop some in their mouth, they actually can get a blister on the mucous membrane. This is one I would not recommend for use by young children, and you have to be careful with it because it is so strong. It's also excellent, however, for all kinds of microbial infections, such as gum disease and skin ailments. Oil of oregano does kill viruses, and there's lots of scientific studies showing that it does. Whether or not it's effective specifically for our new infection that we have now, the COVID-19, I have no idea. All I know is that people who have used the protocol, which I have shared with many of my clients who were infected with COVID-19, they have gotten better. But that doesn't mean it's because they used these things. I can't tell you that that's the case. I can tell you they used these things and they got better, but I certainly don't know it's because of this because there was no double-blind study done, but perhaps in the future something like that could happen. Nonetheless, these are all excellent herbs to have in your natural medicine chest. Now, this is one which is Sambucus, also known as black elderberry. This grows on Long Island all over the place. So does oregano, so does echinacea. So we can grow all these in our own yards and gardens, or you can come out with us on our herb walks and see what they look like in the field. So Sambucus is a little bush. It's called black elderberry. If you don't have one in your yard, plant it because this is a highly medicinal and very highly antiviral. We even know the mechanism of how Sambucus works, which is also called black elderberry. That's a picture of our black elderberries there. This is fine for children as well as adults, and you can use it as a spray or a liquid or learn how to make your own syrups. There's all kinds of, go online, make elderberry syrup, YouTube. You know, there's so much information out there now about how we can take care of ourselves. But it's interesting that each of these herbs have different mechanisms of action. That means they work differently, but they each will deal with a different aspect of getting rid of an infection. So how Sambucus works is viruses duplicate by injecting themselves into your cell, taking over the cell, and then making or forcing the cell to create more of the virus. What Sambucus does is it coats the little mechanism that the virus uses to get into the cell, and it coats it and inactivates it. So the virus cannot get into the cell. So it does not directly kill the virus, but it stops it from duplicating. How fantastic is that? So now we have three different mechanisms of action in three different immune supporting herbs. Oil of oregano is an active antimicrobial, so it kills the virus or the fungus or the bacteria. Echinacea does not kill the organism, but it increases the production of the white blood cells, such as T cells, and it activates the T cells. So they actually are better at recognizing that something shouldn't be there and is invading. So they get more activated to go after it. And then Sambucus interferes with the viral replication. And yes, these can all be taken at once. I have a whole grab and go bag because I usually am lecturing all over the entire planet, truthfully, as and Tootie, who's on the call, knows, who helps me so much with setting up my schedule. So I might be any number of places. And of course, all of those have now been now virtually, like we are here today. But nonetheless, I have a grab and go bag because I travel so much and my immune system might be attacked by something on a plane or at an airport or in a foreign country. I have these with me all the time, even though I don't use them all the time, like you would nutrients. These are herbal medicines, and in particular, immune support medicines. So here's another study about low vitamin D decreases immunity. The vitamin D receptor is required for the iNKT cell development. We're not going to go into all of that, but just so you know, low vitamin D is associated with depression, with low mood, with cognitive performance challenges. And here's all doctors and all kinds of studies that are showing that that is the case. So all the information I'm sharing with you today, if a doctor says that these natural therapies have not been studied, I am sorry to tell them they are incorrect. They have been studied in great detail. And one of the things I'm really working on is we don't throw out our pharmaceuticals. They're fantastic and life-saving when used appropriately. But good medicine will look at the strong evidence for natural therapeutics and will look at the strong efficacy of natural therapeutics as well as the very low incidence of adverse effects. Not that there are none. I just shared with you there are some. Almost every natural remedy can have some negative effects, but not when you compare it to the number of negative effects due to pharmaceutical drugs. So they are more cost effective. They are much more widely tested through traditional use for thousands of years, and they are usually safer and should be the first intervention. And then, of course, when things get out of hand, we absolutely want to have those pharmaceutical drugs to bring in when appropriately. So, good medicine is integrative medicine, using all these things appropriately in their time. So Sambucus, as I said, has been shown to decrease viral duplication by interfering with its ability to enter the host cell membrane and take over the nucleus. Here's another very, very effective remedy, especially at the start of any kind of infection like a cold or a flu. It's called oxalicoxinum, and it's widely available in such places as CVS, etc. And this is not an herb. This is something else called homeopathy. And homeopathy is yet another really wonderful healing modality. In fact, it is the preferred therapy by the Queen of England and the entire royal family. They have been using this. It's been around for hundreds of years and has a vast array of scientific data supporting its use and its safety. And children really, it's great to use homeopathic with kids. I had a full homeopathic first aid kit when I had my first child, who I shared perhaps is 45 years old this year. I can't believe it. I still have that same homeopathic first aid kit that I used all the time, that him and my daughter, who's 41 now, when they were infants. I bought this homeopathic first aid kit so you can actually use it for a very long period of time, and it still has an effect because it's energetic rather than physical. And we can't go into all that. Just so you know, oxalicoxinum is one of those things that you might want to have to offset the effects of any kind of virus. So Looking at exercise, we want it to be low to moderate, not necessarily working yourself to where you're going to be in the Olympics, but just a daily hour of exercise, even though you're locked in the house, like so many of us are. I'm not locked in the house. I mean, everything's closed down here in my facility in Florida, but I still go out and walk every day, socially distancing, and I walk for about 3 miles a day. But even if you just walk 10 minutes, walk 10 minutes away from your house and 10 minutes back. Walking is one of the most potent immune enhancing activities because it provides movement, but it's also a stress reducer. And then you can increase the intensity and duration if you would like to after a while. You don't want to be a weekend warrior, which means do nothing all week and basically sit there and then go out and do all this heavy duty Zumba and aerobics classes and going to the gym. I know you can't go to the gym now, but when we can someday, but or even at home. You don't want to, you know, lift the heaviest weights and work out so much all at once. That's called weekend warrior, and that actually suppresses your immune system. So we're going to bring this to a close and we will take some of your questions in a few minutes. And just to remind you that natural immune system boosting has to do with a positive attitude, prayer, doesn't matter what religion, whatever your connection is to the divine, should you have one. Or if you're an atheist, just look at the beauty of a tree. It doesn't really matter what it is, but if it's about getting out of ourselves and bringing in deep breathing, positive self talk, other things that can help a massage, chiropractic, meditation if you so desire, any kind of prayer and self reflection actually has been studied to increase immune systems function and bring down. And we know that the mind is very important in boosting your immune system, which has been again studied. And there's even a great term for that called psychoneuroimmunology. Research that was done at the University of Rochester looks at the nervous system and knows that it's in direct communication with the immune system, and I will remind you also with the gut. And in the gut is the gut associated lymphoid tissue, which is the largest part of our immune system. So loneliness is really something that brings that immune system down. It's a predictor of disease due to its immune suppressing action. And opposite, happiness, a feeling of self worth, are paramount to good immune health. And prayer or just a positive attitude and spiritual well being actually measurably enhances T cell activity, along with those supplements and foods that we discussed earlier. So just wanted to remind you, if you want to get in touch with me, the best place is naturalnurse.com. I also have an 800 number for those of you who are still, into the phone age, like the Stone Age, the phone age. We do have that 800-829-0918. And I teach lots of classes on herbs and natural therapies. We even have a certification course for those who perhaps want to incorporate sharing this kind of information with yourself, your family, and others. Some people would like a career in natural health. And you don't need to really have any other professional degree. There are ways to move your livelihood into something natural, regardless of what you're doing now. And you could become an RH, which is a registered herbalist, and also learning evidence-based botanical protocols. As you noticed, everything we talked about today was evidence-based. And I teach lots of classes with CE credits for those of you who are professionals and need CE credits for your licensure. And with that, we're going to officially end, but perhaps we can bring Peter back in to assist us with taking any questions that you might have had. Oh, I can
Hi,
read them.
everybody.
Yeah, I can read them. Should I read the questions? Okay.
Oh, sure. And I've unmuted everyone so you could ask questions you might have.
Well, unmuting isn't good. Unmuting is not good because then we're not going to hear the answers.
Okay, I'll mute them again.
answer health-related questions there. You could ask a little bit because then we do have a private practice in a way that you could have a private consult. But I can't do that just on the website, but you can get in touch there. So now I can read these. This would be a good way to go.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. Where's number one? Is that on the bottom? So we'll see how far we get. And thank you guys so much for joining us today. Okay, here's a great question. I'm trying to avoid mucus producing food. Yogurt is said to be one of them. What are my thoughts? Well, yogurt does not produce mucus in everyone, but it does if those people are sensitive to dairy or lactose. So in that case, a much better choice would be the fermented foods made out of cabbage, such as kimchi, which is an Asian variety of fermented cabbage, or sauerkraut, which is an Eastern European. If you do choose either kimchi or sauerkraut, read the labels carefully because you don't want to get one that is full of things like benzoates and all kinds of preservatives. But there are many in the regular grocery store. I'm talking Stop and Shop, guys. I'm talking Stop and Shop, not Whole Foods, and even some local groceries that have really good quality sauerkraut. So you definitely could use that as a fermented food rather than milk products. So who is next? Let's see. I don't know which way they're coming, but we'll go on. Um, let's see, kefir. So kefir is also made out of milk. So those people who might be sensitive to yogurt may also have trouble with kefir. I myself, I love both. I'm fine with both. I also raised my own goats and milked my own goats and made my own yogurt and my own kefir. So if you have some place to do that, that's even great too. But it is available in the store. Okay, so she's saying that the lemon and baking soda, do you mix that with water? Yes, you take half or a quarter of a lemon, squeeze it in a cup, add about a quarter of a cup of water and a quarter of a teaspoon of baking soda. And it bubbles up like a little volcano. You know, this is also a great science experiment at home with the kids who are stuck in. I am also a science teacher. And then you can drink that. It's really, really good for your digestion, for your immune system, for increasing your vitamin C, for decreasing your acidity, for strengthening your bones, all that. And it costs pennies. And then you could save the lemon peels and make your own vitamin C. So it's just good all the way around. So let's see. Um, it just says somebody, Mike is really into fermented stuff. That's good. Yep, fermented stuff is great. So let's see the next one, the lemon and baking soda. Oh, that hit home. We got a lot of questions. And it says, and was that for vitamin D or C? Okay, the lemon juice has a lot of vitamin C. The best place to get vitamin D is actually being in the sun. In fact, the overhyping away from being in the sun has caused a lot of vitamin D deficiency. But there are foods that have vitamin D, but not really vegetarian foods. What has vitamin D, the best food source is truly cod liver oil and other fish. Sardines are very high in vitamin D, but you can take it as a supplement, which I showed you a very good brand on the slides. You got to be careful with all these things about what are the other ingredients. As I said, there's all kinds of quality out there. And sometimes inexpensive brands are also good. And we have many that are made right on Long Island locally that are good. So we have one here about sambucas in a soft capsule form, as effective as elderberry syrup. Maybe yes, maybe no. I would have to read that label to see what are the milligram amounts, what are the active constituents. I personally tend to use straight up elderberry syrup. I find that works best because it coats the mucous membranes as it goes down. And remember, we're talking about these viruses in particular attacking our body through getting through the mucous membranes. That's why they say to keep your hands away from your face. Okay, somebody signed off. Good. Had to leave early. Um, so I'm not seeing if we have any more questions about this. So I guess we're
Oh, there's
just
more
about.
questions at the bottom if you want to go to the
Oh,
bottom
okay.
of the chat.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks for your advice there. Let's go to the bottom. But we are getting to the end of our time. But let's see what
Okay,
else we have.
yes.
What about aluminum pots? About aluminum pots is if you can afford to take them right outside to the garbage tomorrow and purchase pots that are made either out of glass. That's your best choice if you can find them. I have a really old set. I don't think they make them anymore. They were by Corning. Or stainless steel is acceptable, but aluminum is not. Now, if that's the only pot you have, then you can slowly over time, like when it's going to be your birthday of someone, ask someone to get you a different pot, but get rid of the aluminum as much as possible because the aluminum leaches into the food. That's why you never ever should wrap any food in aluminum foil. If you like wrapping food in aluminum foil, you can put that aluminum foil down and then put a piece of wax paper on top of the aluminum foil and then wrap the food in it. So only the wax paper touches the food, but the aluminum foil might still be there to keep the air out and keep it fresh. So no, aluminum foil you want to get rid of. Now somebody had a good question about vitamin C, and I'm wondering where that went. I think they said something about ascorbic acid. So ascorbic acid is the commercially available vitamin C. It actually may cause copper deficiency, but you'd have to take a lot of it. I do not think it's true that ascorbic acid is not bioavailable. I know people who are selling other much more expensive forms of vitamin C are saying that, but I don't believe that's true because most of the literature that have tested vitamin C levels have been done with plain old ascorbic acid. Some of the problems with ascorbic acid nowadays is that it is sourced from bioengineered GMO corn. So that's not great. So ascorbic acid is not the best form of vitamin C, but I would say it's definitely bioavailable and definitely helps to offset the effect of colds or flus. Here in Florida, I just go out and pick acerola berries right off the tree. It's actually growing in front of my house. We can't grow acerola in the Northeast, but you certainly can purchase vitamin C that's very high in acerola. And there's liposome based vitamin C, which is mixed in an oil, which enhances bioavailability. But all these things cost more money. So if your budget just allows you to get simple ascorbic acid vitamin C, I will tell you that's the one that has been studied and definitely has some really positive immune supportive effects. How long is it before someone feels the effects of taking more vitamin D? It's hard to say depending on how deficient you are, but I wouldn't worry about even doing that. First, eat healthy. So I will tell you in 4 weeks of changing your diet completely from that first picture we saw of the junky food to the healthy food, in 4 weeks, you will be a different person. You will automatically drop between 10 and 20 pounds without trying. You will wake up without all that mucus. You will sleep better. You will be in a better mood. You will feel better in every single way. So you don't have to worry about, if just taking one vitamin is going to make you feel different, which is often not the case, but improving your entire overall health, decreasing your stress, and improving your immune system function, that you will feel. And you will feel it 30 days after you start it. And I can guarantee that because I have seen thousands and thousands of people who have worked with me since I started this practice in 1964. And yes, that's with a six. So I think that will end here. Peter, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
helping us host this class. And I'm so glad you recorded so those individuals who might have even signed up but didn't make it will be able to participate in the future.